Hi, in this video I'll show you how to work with method arguments that can be two different types, reference type or primitive. I'll show you the differences between these two. So let's create a project, Java project, methods, args. Let's create a driver class. Alright, and here I'll create another method. I'll make the method name print message. And the message I will pass as an argument here, string message. Like so. I will call this method from my main method and I will say hello. I'm getting an error here because this is a static method. My main method is static, so I need to make the other method also static. Let's run it so we can see hello here. Let me also add here some number, integer. So this is our primitive type, number. And here I'll print the number as well. So now I will have to change the arguments here, what I'm passing. Okay, now you can see hello and number 9. So in this example we're passing, I want to focus on this integer. We're passing integer, which is a primitive type. However, sometimes we want to pass objects to our methods that are reference type. So let's create a another class, animal, and let's put some integer here, private integer height. Okay, let's create getters and setters. And we won't do anything else, so just that. So now I will create another method here, but this time instead of passing these two variables I will pass animal here. So I have to specify the type of what I'm passing, the type of object. So in this case it's going to be animal, and the name for the variable is going to be animal. Here I will print the height of the animal. So I will call method getHeight and it's going to print the message. Let me modify something here. Animal height is. Okay, to call this method I have to call it from main method right now, and I'll say print message, and I need to pass animal here. First let's create the animal object. And set the value for height. So now that I have this animal object, I can see this message is accepting one of the arguments it's accepting is animal. So I need to pass animal here. This is my object and I will pass it here. Let's run it. You can see that animal height is 13. So everything is working fine right now. But let's modify the program a little bit. First, I want to create integer here, number, and I will take this value from here, 9, assign it to number, and pass the variable instead of hard-coded value right there. Let it be hard-coded over here. Okay, so before I print the message, I also want to print here to see what is the value of variable number. So, and let's put something number before we call method. All right, let's run it again. So number before we call method is 9. Then when we call the method hello 9, so still 9. Now let me modify this number in here. Number equals 10, let's say. Let's run it again. So we can see number before we call the method is 9. And then in the method itself, because I reassigned the value, it's 10. Let's see after we called the method, is the number still 9 or it has changed its value to 10? I will copy this line and put it here. Number after we call method. Let's run it again. And we can see that number before the method is 9. Inside the method it's 10. And after we call the method it's still 9. So with primitive values, the original value doesn't change when we pass the variable to the method, modify it, and also print it, I guess. So when the code returns to this location at line 11 and prints the next line, line 13, it's printing number again. The value is still the same 9 here. The logic that we put inside the method, number equals 1, number equals 10, did not affect the logic outside of the method. However, let's do the same check with our animal class. So let's print the height before we call the method. Height before we call method. And let me retrieve height of the animal. Animal get height. So we expect to see 13. Let's run it. And you can see height before we call method is 13. Now when we call the method, I want to modify this value here, the value of height. Animal set height, and let's make it, so it was 13, let's make it 22. Let's run it again. Height before we call method is 13. Animal height is 22, so this is inside the method. Now let's go back and see what is happening after we called the method. Let's run it again. And you can see that before we call method, height is 13. In the method, it's 22. But after we come back to our main method, the height is already changed to 22 and remains 22. So the difference here between primitive and reference type primitive, we pass the value, and if it's modified, it doesn't change the original value. But with reference type, which are our objects that we create, when you pass an object, the reference to the object to the method, and modify the values on that object, then the original value is also modified. So why does this happen? Let me bring my paint. So when we pass some value to a method, let's say we're passing animal. So this is reference type. When we pass reference type to a method, we're actually passing only reference to this object. We're not passing the whole object that can be modified without affecting the original. What we're passing, let's say somewhere on your computer you have this location for the memory. So what we're passing here is actually something that points to some memory location where this object is stored. Let's say this location. So your original main method over here also has animal. That's when we declared it. Let me put something like that, new animal. So, and here we also have animal. Let me change the color. So here is when we modified it, and here where the original value was 13, I think. Okay, so because we're passing just a reference to the object is always the same. So it doesn't matter in here, this object is the same object. The one is passed as an argument is the same object. And when you're modifying the animal here, it's also pointing to the same object. So you keep working with same object. That's why when you come back here and you check the value again, when you try to get it, you will see that it got modified as 22 because you are still working with the same object. All the time you're working with the same object.